It's my extreme pleasure to interview Michael Rymer, the director of Face to Face, which is coming up in September. Michael, can you please tell us, going to Screen Australia and saying, look, I want to shoot this short movie. It's based on basically one location. It's super low budget. It's based on a David Williamson play. How can they not leap at that?
You know, we went in and the assessors said, well, we don't really think this is a film. So I said, oh, you mean like 12 Angry Men is not a film? And so I said, okay, well, I'm not going to wait for people to give me permission to make this film. I'm going to figure out a way to make it on my own. I have a friend, Dennis Illick. He bought one of these Canon DSLR cameras, a D5. And, you know, one thing that was really very clear was, you know, we'd look at this footage and say, this is just beautiful. The headline is that a young person can pick up a camera and go and make a feature film without lots of money. And that's revolutionary. I think the thing to remember is a good part of the filmmaking process is the screenplay. Now, I had David Williamson. So, you know, when I read the play, I felt like all the heavy lifting had been done. That, you know, even though it was very confined, it was an immensely entertaining bit of storytelling where there was a twist every 5-10 pages. The process of Face to Face is it's like the unpeeling of an onion. You know, there's layers and layers. As each person pipes in, you get a different perspective on the whole situation. As an audience, you're sitting there going, you know, I'm actually never quite sure where this is going to go. You know, you're a Battlestar Galactica fan. I've spent years in these very dark rooms shooting 5-6 pages of dialogue. So I've learned some tricks about how to shoot 5-6 pages of dialogue in a dark room to keep it visually interesting.
Now, somebody like Matt Newton, this is a role that is absolutely choice. Like, he gets the full gamut of pretty much everything. How much of that was him bringing it to the table and you cajoling it out of him?
Well, on paper, Matthew's role actually doesn't look like much. You don't know anything about this guy, really. You don't really go into his life. The real life Jack that Matthew plays said to me, you know, if I'm doing my job properly, I sort of vanish from the room. And Matthew had said to me independently of that, you know, if I do my job right, you don't even have to cut to me. You know, which is a very low ego sort of thing for an actor to say. And what happened in the edit was that Matthew's character sort of became the chorus to tell the audience what was going on.
But the physicality of the actors, they're moving around, they're doing things. Is this the kind of thing that comes out while you're shooting or in rehearsal?
There was no rehearsal. I got a spectacular cast for this film. What I've learned is that rehearsal is sort of something that most people do in the theatre. In films, you really only have enough time to pull it apart and kill it, and not enough time to put it back together. So years ago, I stopped trying to actually rehearse the text. When I do have rehearsal time, most of the time is spent talking, discussing the character of the actor's arc, the actor's history, try and sort of lay the groundwork for when we actually get out there. And if we do any physical rehearsing, I actually prefer to do it without the text. Keep the text fresh so that, you know, it's not dead on arrival. Right. The other thing that you do is, you know, this is a play. There's an inherent theatricality in the way it's written that you don't want to lose because it's entertaining, it's fun, it's well written, there's a poetry to what David Williamson writes. But at the same time, you don't want it to feel like a film to play. So I allowed some amount of improvising and some amount of ad-libbing to just loosen it up enough that each actor could find their own rhythm and mess it up a little bit.
So it really is, I mean, for actors, it's a showcase to show how you should react when you're actually not necessarily on camera.
Those actors sat in the circle through everyone else's monologues and scenes, which is very unusual. You don't, you know, so they had to do a lot of listening. And the key to acting is listening. And it tends to be what actors don't do very well. Because, you know, oh, it's not my line, it's not my scene. And, but we had cameras shooting every direction. So, you know, it was very much that you had to sort of sit down in the circle and be there. You could not zone out, you could not disconnect because you don't know. You know, you might have been the key reaction from what someone was saying, kept everyone honest.
Now, you're an Elwood boy, but at the same time, you learnt your trade at USC and you've done the bulk of your work in Hollywood. Why come back to Australia and do this tiny little movie?
This particular piece is so Australian, but it's not Mad Max Australian. It's kitchen sink Australian. It's about people. You see this movie, you know every character in this movie. To be able to say that is interesting and as dramatic as any story, I think is very important. It's very empowering to me as an Australian, and hopefully as a part of a filmmaking community. But I think bottom line is it's a good yarn.
Well, I think we can all look forward to a bright and happy future for Australian film, and also for Australian filmmakers like Mr. Michael Rymer. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.